What you're about to see in this video is me talking with my buddy Matt Choi about what it takes to be a great creator. You're also going to see at the beginning right here a gym in Austin that caters specifically to entrepreneurs and treats them like professional athletes. Here we go. This is Kollective North.
Collective North.
Okay.
A lot of open turf. I mean, like most of their gyms are like set up in this fashion, but this used to be an old gym. So you'll see like there's like rooms here that are like CrossFit-y, more like individual like workout rooms.
Turf outside.
Turf outside.
It gives me the vibes of Exos.
Very similar. Like levels of like the co-working. So like there's always.
This is behind the gym.
Yes, correct. So there's two like locker rooms all here. There's two like individual like workout spots.
Coach room.
Yeah, so you'll see here. So a lot of times it's like.
Okay, yeah. You need like a individual session.
Correct. Or if you just want to film, like I rarely come in here to film, but like sometimes it's just better because like no one will be in your shots.
Yep.
Still has this very similar aesthetic and all the equipment that you need. It's like more CrossFit-y here.
And then this is all just kind of lounge?
Yeah. It's like lounge, co-working. There's a recovery base set up here.
It's pickleball?
Yeah. So there's pickleball here. They have these like working pods, but a lot of people just co-work here. But you know, with Austin being huge with this, they needed this.
Wow.
What's up, gents?
How we doing, guys?
It's cold. So you can feel the heat.
Yes. Sick. How we doing?
4 plunges, 2 saunas. I'm actually in here a lot.
Very
less
cool.
now since I have it at home.
Yeah.
But I mean, dude, these things
And this is, you can come in anytime?
anytime. I mean, this is just like when it's part of like it's part of the gym membership.
Very cool.
The only things that are ad hoc here are we'll go upstairs and like they have the Kollective labs, which is basically like just like PT and recovery, and like that stuff like it doesn't come with your membership. You just keep paying. And then this is like kind of like more PT.
PT, yeah.
Yeah. So they have like.
Bro, this is literally this place is like a professional sports
facility for like entrepreneurs and
like,
regular day people.
Yeah.
I thought the more you pay for something.
This is above the gym. This is crazy. Look at this.
This is a sick studio. These guys killed it.
Wow. Very cool. Okay, so people just come in and book this by the hour.
Yes. And that's why I was like, when I was scheduling with you, I'm like, yo, like it can't just be whatever. Like we have to book it through their system.
Okay, where you want me sitting?
Side side.
Cool.
There we go, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Two-person?
So we're in the studio here, dude. I'm pumped about this, dude. We didn't get to do this when you were here last.
Me too, bro. I always love seeing you. I love hanging with you. I'm glad we've got a little bit closer over the last couple of years, and now I'm stoked to be able to do this with you.
100%, dude. I still remember when JT sent me an audio message. He said, dude, keep going. I still remember that message. I was literally in Austin. I was picking up Thai food, and I just like opened this voice memo from JT Barnett, and it was basically in summarization of, I love what you're doing. Keep crushing it. Keep adding value, and just like keep pushing. And like,
When did I send this?
dude, this had to have been my first year in Austin, so it had to be in 2022. Mm-hmm. And I remember when you were on the Danny Miranda pod and you started naming some people, and you like kind of like named, I think it was after maybe your convo with Danny. And then at that point I was just like, obviously I think as a creator, the one thing that you can struggle with at times is just like the unknown. It's like you don't really know if like you're doing the right things, if you're making the right moves, like how the content's perceived from the external. Not that it really matters, but to get that validation or to get like a positive feedback from someone that like I was looking up to at the time, and I've been a big fan of your stuff for a while. And I think the thing I really resonated with you the most was the fact that like I know how much of Gary that you've consumed. And I just relate with that a lot because I think a lot of people think that they've consumed Gary until you meet someone where you're like, huh, like you might have seen his reels a ton, but like you haven't actually broke down like 4Ds and gone through like a deep dive on like how he actually like is playing in this space. And I had a lot of respect for what you've built so far.
Thank you, bro. The reason why I send that message is through a mix of past experience plus intuition. There's some people that I come across where I'm like, yo, they have it. I don't even know what it is, some sort of talent, but it's not just talent where it's like skill. It's some sort of like talent mixed with like personal, like somebody that I can tell is like, yo, this seems like a good human too. And I think that when like yours was a very clear mix of both. And so even though it was early in your career, it still was like so clear for me and all the people that were on my team of like, yo, this is one of the dudes that, because you were in our database, in our creator database. So we're going through people, and we had only given like out of probably 5,000 people, we go and give like a kind of a criteria of like how we think we could place them with a brand, how stoked a brand would be to work with somebody. And we do it out of 5. We'd probably only given like maybe 8 people 5s. And when we came across yours, we were like, this is a 5 for sure. And so probably right around then was when I texted you of like, yo, your shit's dope, keep going. But have just always thought that like what you're doing is really cool. I think it's needed for the world of running. And I also just think like now that we've got to connect, I'm so glad that we did, because you're an awesome dude as well. So
I'm humbled, bro. I appreciate that. Dude, I want to dive in. Obviously this will be a really good conversation for a lot of creators, but like with how much short form and a lot of TikTokification of all the platforms has gone, I'd love your feedback and like your experience right now as you're really building out your YouTube, and you're doing it in a way, bro, where it's like, it's not your beastification of YouTube. And I've really had an intentional conversation with my team around YouTube, around like not going so far on the end of Mr. Beast of like really strong hook, make sure the packaging is directly correlated to the intro, and then really focusing on retention. Like, dude, a lot of your stuff is like, it's very raw. Like you're going 30 minutes of just like, I watched your Zoom one of like, the angle wasn't even cut well. How's it been going for YouTube for you?
I feel like I live my life through like feeling my own intuition of like, there's a feeling in my body when I know that it's like, this is right for me and this is what I want to do. Occasionally it matches like, this is what I feel like other people might have interest in. That's when I go all in on something. And so for me, that with short form over the last 2 years has felt almost, the word I would want to use is like stagnant, almost exhausted in the sense of consuming. I'm not feeling inspired when I consume right now in short form. It feels like there's so many people doing it. Something about the way that the platforms are, of how they're all for you and interest based, and you're not seeing a lot of familiarity of like people that you know. It just feels like I've gotten tired of the way I'm consuming. So for me, I asked myself like, what is the stuff that I want to be watching more of? And it was like, I actually would like to see way more like low edits, low production, very like intentional of like the conversations and how people are living. So that mixed with when I was 21, 22, Gary V, when I was 21, 22, 23, the stuff that I really enjoyed consuming was not highly edited. It was literally like daily V stuff that was like, and even when I think about Gary V's content, the stuff that I cared about the most wasn't the transitions, it wasn't the scenery, it wasn't the music. It was literally just the conversations that he was having and me being able to observe how he was doing what he was doing and how he's living his life. And if he was putting out 3-hour videos with 0 edits, like literally 0 cuts, even with him taking 10, 15 seconds just sitting with himself or him texting, I would still consume that because I feel closer to him because it feels more raw and more authentic. So those kind of mix of things led me to be like, this is what I want to try and step into. I've always known I've wanted to do YouTube. I just didn't know what way I wanted to do it. And I think probably a little bit of the over procrastination of like, what is my YouTube strategy? Probably got a little bit in there. Plus timing of being like, I can't be the person to film it. I need a D-Rock, or so I just never really like dove into it heavily. And I just think over the last like couple of months, I think short form pushing me to a place of exhaustion and me being like, I need some sort of different creative outlet because I want to keep creating more, pushed me into doing YouTube. So the way that I'm going about it is like, I want it to be the most raw, I want it to be effortless for me. Yeah. Like I want it to feel like I'm just be able to live my day and do the things that I want to do and bring people along with it. I don't have the chops to do that cinematically. Like I literally was just I just had this whole conversation with Alex for an hour and a half. I am not a cinematographer. I can analyze videos and see how people shoot things and go and kind of do it as well. But I don't have it in me to be like, I need this to be a 3-second close-up and then this to be a wide angle and this to be over here. It just isn't something that I feel like is a good usage of my energy. So I'm like, I want to do this in the most natural way for me possible. So that is the way that I'm doing it. Super raw, super authentic. And I have never felt more confident about something in my content since I started TikTok. Legitimately. Yeah.
It gives me a lot of Sam Sulek vibes.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yep.
I'm sure you know that name, and obviously he's crushed YouTube from like a... Dude, his stuff is like, when I watch it, I'm like, it's actually just him. Like, he makes his 4 eggs. His when he made his morning routine and his like morning breakfast of like 4 eggs and ramen, I'm just like, for whatever reason, I'm still watching a 25-minute video of this man just literally doing something that I typically do in the morning, make breakfast or make lunch. And I think there's something where we're going so far from like how Mr. Beast has really branded his channel, in addition to inspire a lot of creators to like create like that.
You know what it is, dude? We will always have this pendulum of like super fast paced to super slow. Like, it'll always swing. And like, it's the same thing as this kind of interest graph versus familiar graph, that like Instagram, when it came out, was all relationship familiar, people that you knew, things going on with people that you already are friends with. Now TikTok comes out and it's all interest, people you don't know, things you don't know, new things. And I think that pendulum will always kind of swing back and forth. I feel like the editing style of it being very fast paced, a lot of cuts, a lot of pacing. I think some people are, especially with short form, people are getting a little bit more tired with that. And then Mr. Beast getting so popular and everybody recreating that has created where I think there is a craving for this slower pace. That's the intuition that I've had, which has made me be like, wow, this is perfect timing for me to like really actually step into this, because this is what I want to do.
Who do you watch on YouTube? Like who are creators that you genuinely, like on your free time, like you're consuming?
There's not a lot, dude. Honestly, there's not a lot.
Okay.
So, because you brought up Sam, Reed, who is Knight, Jimmy, partner, all that stuff. When he told me about Sam Sulek and was like, you guys got to check this dude out. He's putting out like 35-minute vlogs that are just him like lifting weights and no editing. Me seeing Sam Sulek gave me the permission or the opportunity to know that this is possible. And I feel like I'm a very forward, very like progressive, very like innovator kind of person. But I will say, I'm not the inventor of things. Yvon Chouinard, the dude that founded Patagonia, says, I'm not the inventor. I'm not an inventor. I'm an innovator. And I feel very similar to that. I don't think I'm ever the first to do something. But when I see somebody do it, I have an intuition, an inkling of like, oh, that's gonna work. People are craving that. I'm craving that. So now it's my time. That's how I felt when I saw Sam. I was like, okay, because there's an example of this now in the world, I now feel like I have permission to go and do it. It's probably what Gary was for me. Like, as being an entrepreneur who's has more like feminine qualities and like emotional and things like that. That was what Gary was for me. Before that was like, entrepreneurs were like this like hard ass like. And so I need like one example of it for me to be like, cool, now I'm going. So Sam was that for me. In terms of people that I actually consume, I would say most of the people that I consume are actually very different style. They're actually like way more cinematic, like Marcus Milioni and like what they're doing with Represent and like all of these brands that are kind of like doing the behind the scenes. It's much different than the style that I can do.
Fair.
I know that. But I just think that what I like about them is I just like seeing kind of what they're up to, even though it's probably a couple shades off of mine. It's just interesting. I would love to see more people do it raw. I actually think I would consume way more of theirs, but there's just not a lot of people that are doing it.
Correct. I'm a fan of Marcus and how they're building their YouTube channel as well, because it is a lot more. I always think, and I think the same thing about Max with Siegelman. Like when you have like a founder who's a little bit more discreet, that isn't really out there, that's not really a creator. And I think Marcus is more of a creator than Max is from like the content level. Like Max, like if it was up to him, I would probably never want to be on video.
Yeah, so
right.
True, yeah.
But like Marcus, like I think there's a little bit more like fluency in that space, and even to see how they are curating their content around YouTube, showcasing a lot of running, getting ready for races, prepping for races, but then also the flip end of like building Minted. Even for me as like as a fan of the brand, and also seeing Marcus on TikTok early, it's been fun to see how they're curating that story, because to your point, I don't feel like that's beastification of YouTube.
I agree.
Right? It's like their own style. It's a little bit more cinematic in the sense of like they're capturing certain shots that like they're not vlogging. Right? And it is a fun way to even consume, even from my end as someone that's in the space of running, but also like a fan of their stuff. That's cool to hear that.
They're doing kind of like these, it's almost like a cinematic episode story. You know, like they're like showing of how they're doing it, but like the way that they film it is almost like it's an individual film.
Yeah.
And I think that is so cool, and I'm like so stoked for them to be able to do that. I think the thing is, for anybody that's listening, it's like you got to know what is natural to you.
Yeah.
Like what do you have at your disposal? What is the stuff that you actually feel like you get energy from? And like lean into that, because dude, anything can work. Like, you know this from short form.
Mm-hmm.
There's all different types of creators in the world. There's all different types of styles. There's people that are literally just posting photos. There's people that are doing long rants. There's people that are doing cinematic. The way that you win is by leaning into who you are and like what actually comes the best to you. And so I feel the same with YouTube. And the conversation I was just having earlier today was like, I have to lean more into, and this is what I feel like I'm doing with YouTube, I have to lean more into what I know is natural to me, because me trying to go and replicate Marcus or the represent team, it just doesn't work for me, and it's a loss of energy for me. So yeah,
I think something to like wrap the YouTube. I think something you said in one of the videos was like, you're not attached to the timeline of the growth, like, and it's allowing you to stay really raw and authentic. And I think that's actually something for a lot of creators to like understand. And obviously, like, you've built, which I'm sure I want to get into next in terms of your actual business, right? Because like YouTube right now is more like a hobby, a side hustle in a sense. It's like you're not making your living off of YouTube. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people that are starting in that space, like if you're vulnerable and you're in a rush, you're not going to be able to do it the way that you're doing it. Because to be honest, like if we had 10 YouTubers here, they'd be like, JT, that's probably not the fastest way to grow, but that's okay. And I think you having an awareness of that is an important thing to like also like discuss, because it's like, if you're in a rush to perform and to get views and to get these external metrics, then the way that you're executing on YouTube wouldn't probably be the smartest strategy if we're in a rush.
Yep.
But your ability to say, you know what, I'm going to stay patient, and like this is like the long tail of like how I'm going to build my community on YouTube, is I think allowing you to also stay more patient. So I think that's important.
I don't want fast, I want far.
Fair.
And if I try to go too fast, a lot of times you go fast because of fear.
100%.
You don't have, you need this to work.
Facts.
So you try to rush it. And that's when I think you really get lost, and you try doing what other people are doing, what's working, what's trendy.
Correct.
I don't care how long this takes. I'm trying to enjoy every moment of it, which means I need to actually do it my way, because that's where the enjoyment comes from. Then the process is there. All the rest is a byproduct. And the funniest thing, bro, is when I actually do feel like I really enjoy the process, I know it's going to work. Like I genuinely, like I was saying this, I actually know it's going to work. I don't know when, but I do know that it will, because it's authentic, it's me, and I feel so good with the process of it. So yeah.
There's something about having fun along the way. JT, I mean, obviously, for people that don't know your journey and or like origin, and obviously the business that you've built, give them the quick like origin story of like how you've gotten into the content space, right? Because someone could be like, the fuck is JT? Like, yeah. So give them a quick origin and talk about Barnett X and like your actual business and what you guys do for brands.
Cool. So the quick spiel of it, I was a pro hockey player. I was always filming towards the end of my career, just the ins and outs of what my life was like. When I retired, I became a personal trainer and started filming all my workouts. This was on Instagram. My girlfriend, who's now my fiance, was also doing it at the same time. I saw her build her brand. I was like, I know content's the thing I'm going to do. So when I retired, I went all in on content through fitness. At some point, TikTok came out, and I jumped on TikTok and was literally posting the most random videos and seeing them get a ton of traction. I was like, I love this. This is so cool. It's a different style, and I'm going to go and try and go a little bit harder on this. I ended up starting a content creator house called Honey House with a friend of mine named Nick Dio. And basically the gist of it was, let's put 10 people in a house together and film it all on TikTok. All the other TikTok houses were coming out that were younger. We were like, let's put a different spin on this and put 25-year-olds in a house, everybody above 25, that are regular people that aren't actually creators, and just see what it looks like. That account, which was a complete case study test, ended up going from 0 to 1 million followers in 60 days. We did 2 quote unquote seasons of the house. And when we hit 1 million followers, we paid everybody back. It turned into like a business. We were like, okay, this is all good. And we felt really good with it. And at that same time, when we hit 1 million, a lot of brands started hitting me up saying, can you teach us how to do TikTok? So I was like, I know that, and this, one of my best friends was the guy that I was doing the house with. We were like, do we want to keep doing these houses? He had just gotten promoted at his work, which he works for Gary Vee. And I had started getting hit up by all these brands saying, can you teach us TikTok? So we were like, let's put a pause on these houses and let's both go into our own individual things. So I started the company Barnett X. The first thing was literally just doing strategy with brands. So sitting with a founder just like this and them being like, here's my story. Here's the way that we want to create. Here's our product. What do we do? And we would outline videos for them. We would literally write scripts. We would go in, we would look at the office. We would set up the studio. We would show them how to film. 98% of it was on iPhone. So we would show them how to use green screen. We would film the video and show them how to edit it. We would show them CapCut. We would do all of that. Strategy turned into founders being like, hey, we understand like how to do, we understand like what we want to do. We just don't have a person on our team to do it. Can you find us somebody, like actually go out and hire us, a creator? So I started making videos saying, is there any creators out there in the world that want to make videos for brands? And not like as an influencer, it's different because influencers have their own audience, but there's a whole world of content creators that don't have a massive audience, but make content that brands would want to put on their own account. And so it's kind of a separate entity than influencers. So we started going out and finding creators for brands that they could hire internally, like employees. This is like the database that we had, which is how we came together. So I started this recruiting company. It's called Creator X. So the Barnett X was like strategy, Creator X was recruiting. And we still do that today. So we're still finding creators for brands. We're still doing strategy with companies, still sitting down and outlining their content. It's gotten a little bit more detailed, and we've also added on like some ways we'll actually make content, like we'll actually do the whole video. So a little bit of like a production arm. But high level, it's a mix of consulting and recruiting is what I'm still doing, along with I started building my personal brand all around business. So they kind of work as like, I push people to the agency, agency pushes people to my personal.
No, it makes sense. I mean, it's me following you got me into that ecosystem, which makes a lot of sense.
There you go.
When it comes to like now, like creators, like you get 5,000 applicants. You were talking about like that 5-star rating. I guess like if for a younger creator that's like starting, like maybe talk about like qualities that you as an agency owner, knowing brands, like what is like, where's a position of strength that you see for creators? And then also like rooms where you're like, or areas of improvement where you're like, yo, this is why you might not have a 5-star rating, or this is like where you could potentially improve.
The 5 things that we were rating them on when we initially started, and it's tweaked a little bit, but brand safety. So like if you're posting stuff on your own account that a brand is going to look at and be like, well, we can't be affiliated with this person, gonna kind of shoot yourself in the foot. The next one was, are you making content that's contextual to the platform that you're on? If somebody's scrolling on Instagram, somebody's scrolling on TikTok, whatever platform it is that you're creating on, if you're just reposting things from other channels that don't fit the actual psychology of the platform, that's going to be something that we're going to look at and be like, okay, they might be really good on another platform, but this brand wants somebody that's on TikTok, and this person might crush it on Instagram, but they're not right for this. So can you make content that's contextual? Consistency. At the beginning, particularly when the algorithms were a lot easier, we would see creators that had posted 10 times, had 50,000 followers because 3 of those videos popped off, but then they weren't creating for another 2 months, and then they'd post like 1 or 2 videos. And for us, if you're trying to work with a brand, brands want people that are in it, like that are spending time in the culture of the platform. So consistency doesn't necessarily need to mean you're posting 3 times a day, but it just needs to be, they need to be able to look at like this person has stuck with it and has a track record of showing up. So consistency is the next one. And then the last one is a variety of styles. Like, the last 2. One is a variety of styles, which is like, can you make different types of content? Can you talk into the camera? Can you film your environment and do a voiceover? Can you do no talking and put text? Can you do a vlog? Like the more variety that you have, the more I think that you're a weapon at what you do. You had a lot of variety.
Yeah.
The more variety that you have, the more I'm like, this person's legit, because algorithms change. Styles of content that people are prioritizing changes. And if you're one-dimensional and you only know how to do one style and you can't do others, to me that worries me a little bit, because we don't control the algorithm.
Correct.
TikTok changes something and now people aren't looking for this style anymore. Can you pivot, reinvent yourself, and go and do something a different way? That's something to look for. The last one is, are you community focused? Can you cultivate a community? Are you in your comment section? If you have comments, are you replying to all of them? Can you see that you actually have people that are like genuinely interested in you, that are like not just writing an emoji in your comment, but are like actually asking questions about like things that you're wearing or what you're doing.
Correct.
If you do have that in your comment section, and you're engaging with it, to me that means that you're community focused. So those are the 5 things that we look for.
You know, last time when you were here, we chatted a lot about like, you know, when you were like, dude, at the hub of when you were making those videos, it was probably the easiest point for someone to pick up the camera and start recording, in the sense of like the level of attention that was on the devices during the pandemic. Like no one was out doing other stuff. Like people were literally consuming on their living room couch every single day. We talked a lot about quality versus quantity and how like being a creator, there's a level of skill. Now it's like there's a lot of competition. To your point, your For You page is flooded. Talk a little bit about now, like separation of like, there's actually like a skill that comes with this. Not even just from the mental psyche of like, can you like overcome the fact that your videos aren't doing well or just staying consistent for a long period of time, but like the actual skill set that a creator needs to have some level of success in this space.
Dude, I feel like this is the thing that's been the hardest with me for my work, because if I could have it my way, I would want literally every single person in the world to be able to have success, because I genuinely care about the people that I'm talking to and I want them to be able to win. The hard part has been there is actually a serious level of talent that's required for success now compared to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because of the amount of people that are doing it. And it makes sense. Like think about anything that's low barrier to entry, like the fact that everybody has an iPhone, there's no cost to join TikTok. It makes sense why so many people are doing it, but that makes the playing field so much harder. So I've had to get more specific or candid or honest with like companies about like, this person on your team it does not have the talent required for this to pop off, or your expectations of them are a little bit too high, because a couple years ago that person might have been unbelievable because it was easier, but now it's a little bit harder. So I do think that there is a very serious level of talent. Granted, anybody can still do it, and I do think you can learn it, but it's somewhat like sports where like some people have it and some people don't, and you can practice, but like there's only a certain level that you might be able to reach. So yeah, it's just a lot harder now.
I think I was like listening to a part of Gary's interview with Chris, and Gary had said like the amount of creators that can make $80,000, there will be a good amount of those people that can turn their social brand into a mini side hustle or potentially a full-time job if you're willing to live under your means. There's very few that will make millions. There's not many Logan Pauls and like Mr. Beasts of the world. Like there's a few in that category that truly understand the power of attention and social and how to actually like build products outside of just like the content.
Yeah.
But then there's like that middle range, which I think like you and I discussed is like, yeah, it's like can you make 6 figures to $250,000? Like that room of people I think is a large amount actually.
Yes.
Like I have a lot of friends that are in that realm that are playing in that ballpark where they could leave the full-time job, or they already have left the full-time job, and if they actually play the game long enough, could see this out if they can play the game for 10 to 20 years instead of just like, I need to like be good for the next 3 years, because you can go hard for 3 years and then fall off and be like, do I need to go get a corporate job? Like JT, for me, like the mindset of like ever applying for a corporate job is not even ingrained in my like software.
Agreed.
Like I think that there's also a level of like conviction that like if you are going to do this, like understand the game that you're playing. And if you are going to play the long game, like don't overexpend yourself to the point where you're out leveraged because you're living a life that you can't support.
Yes.
And I think there's something to be said about that for creators too. It's like, it's easy to want to get a new car and to like start expending money because you have some deals coming in, but realize that like, it's not stable. And the ability to understand your own finances as an entrepreneur, or just having a level of personal finance, like it's also important. It's something that I don't really see a lot of creators talk about, where it's like, dude, if I didn't learn those things before I even started getting into this space, I think that it would be very easy for me to overexpend myself and be like, oh, but I have this deal that's going to pay me in net 60 days, but there's no money in there right now. And I could easily go swipe my credit card and do a bunch of shit to be like, yo, but I'm going to get paid in like, in 2 months. But it's like that rabbit hole, I think, is also something that is like a big struggle that I've talked to a lot of friends with that are like, yo, like, dude, this brand didn't pay me on time. Or like, I'm not getting paid for X, Y, and Z until it's like foreshadowed out. And I'm like, there's like a level of like, even that financial conversation that's important to have.
I think that it's not glorified enough to be a hybrid entrepreneur. Like, I think a lot of what a lot of creators, I think the segue for them to get into it and maybe even the play like forever to do, is to work the job that you're currently working if it's not something that you despise, and do content on the side. And like you were saying, the price points, like I think it's very attainable for a creator to be making $50, $60, $70, $100,000 a year with content just being like a thing that you do 4 hours a day, 3 hours a day, and have the stability of your job. I think if you are going to go all in on content, I really, really, really recommend not going all in on brand deals, because that's what's not stable.
Fair.
What I think you should do, and what I recommend for most, is come out with some services that you can offer. Like this is how I've been able to do it. I don't rely on just brand deals. I looked at my content and I was like, okay, brand deals are going to be an add-on. That is something that I want to be able to do, but I need something that is more stable, that I know that all of my content will funnel people to, that's actually going to be the business that I'm going to build. I think a consumer brand is really hard, but some people are doing consumer brands.
Correct.
I think service is an even easier entry point for creators to start. That could be you doing UGC for multiple people. That could be you if you want to go in your specific category and offering some sort of consulting service. That could be video editing. That could be whatever it is. Whatever those talents are that you have with your content, I think you starting a couple of services allows you to have some sort of stability if you do want to leave your job, that you don't have to rely on brand deals, because brand deals is where I think everybody gets in trouble.
Yeah.
Just relying on them.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I'm even in the space right now where like most of my income does come from brand deals.
You might be at a different place though.
Correct.
You like, I do think that at a certain point, when you get into like, you're solidified and you're able to lock in a brand deal that's multiple months and like now it's more consistent. I do think there's a time and place where it's like, okay, this is a little bit more legitimate, but most creators will have a much harder time, especially starting out, bro. Yes. Like starting out, you couldn't have jumped into that.
Not at all.
Exactly.
Not at all. No, I think that's very fair. I mean, I think to your point, even for me, like it started with personal training. Like I didn't actually go all in on content like as a creator for a long time.
Same as me.
But like most people don't actually like understand that piece of like, I think it's like even to Gary's point of like eating shit, like how long are you willing to eat shit for? And part of that is doing the job that like is giving you consistent money so you can keep this thing afloat.
Dude, and the stress that you offload by doing that, I believe it allows you to grow faster. And I think that a lot of people, you're adding too much stress to your plate that makes you need to grow fast. And when it needs to work is when it doesn't work. When it needs to work, it doesn't, because when you need something to work, you act out of a completely different, like it's just less authentic and people can feel it, and it can feel more transactional. And I think our bullshit meter of consumers is so high that if you can feel that somebody's not being authentic, there's just way less of an inclination to follow them and want to support them. Whereas if you genuinely feel, this is my belief, if you genuinely feel that somebody is just giving and they're like, wow, this is like, this person is just like genuinely helping me, I want to support that person more. So I think your growth comes faster. And I think if you can find a job or some sort of side thing that allows you to just make the money that you need to be able to live, and you can live really humbly with that money and pour all of your time into your content with it not needing to be rushed, that's when you'll have the most success.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's like feeling desperation. It's like if you need a job and you're like, yo, I'm willing to take anything. Or if it's like even in dating, it's like I'm willing to go out with anyone. Then like there is that level of like, but why are you like that? And I think people can feel that just as as social beings. But I think if you're out there and you can challenge that framework and play a little slower and do something to support yourself, I actually think that is the recipe. When it comes to like products now, I'm actually intrigued. Like, and we chatted a little bit about this last time. If like you talked about services, now we're seeing so much of like whether it's CPG products or actual like coaching or like there's a list of stuff that creators can come up with. How many of them do you see actually being successful? Creator-led products and or businesses, because it's actually like even for me like where my next step would be, but I haven't taken a lot of action on actually executing yet.
I think creator businesses are incredible kickoffs or sparks for the brand. I think beyond the initial launch or the initial top of funnel marketing, it really is dependent on the team, the product, and the actual desire for that product in the category that it's in. And I think that a lot of people forget those. Like, a lot of creators launch products just thinking that like their community wants them, or just thinking that it sounds fun and they're like interested in it. But the challenging part about a creator-led brand is if the creator is the founder, creators just naturally being creative is a completely different side of your brain than being operational. And when you launch a business that is separate from your content, now you're having to spend so much time in operations. And if you don't build a team around you and you're the person that is like the CEO or is the founder and is running it, you end up kind of getting pulled in between, am I creating or am I operating? Am I creating or am I operating? And I think that breaks that breaks down over time. And I think that that's where you see a lot of challenges with creators is the people that they build around them, the team around them, isn't sustainable without the creator. And that's the way that I think it wins. I think that you can actually build it if the team that you've built is like very legitimate in their own right, and the product is very legitimate in its own right, to where the creator can launch it, creator can still be affiliated with it, creator can still market it. But after the initial launch of getting the hype around it, if the creator was completely to vanish off of the face of the earth, the product could still stick around with the team that's running it. And that's when you see brands win. I really do think that that's the playbook. So I think we'll see that more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's dude, I didn't realize that Prime wasn't started by Logan and KSI. Like, Prime had already existed, and it was actually like on its like second run, but like they became the face of it. But most people don't know that.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So like, even for me, I'm like, oh, like you could just be a creator and maybe slap on a brand that is like 10th in their industry and then elevate it into being a top 2 sports drink sponsored by the UFC. Like, that logic was like, when I found that out, I'm like, oh shit, you don't have to start this on your own. No different than my buddy Ryan Trahan. Mm-hmm. He lives out in Austin. He has a Joyride. Mm-hmm. He didn't start Joyride. Mm-hmm. Joyride existed.
Yep.
But no one really knows that. Like, unless you're going deep into the weeds of like how a business actually got started and who was the founders, like everyone just thinks like that's Ryan's healthier version of candy. Mm-hmm. And even the more that I think about products, and per our last conversation at Two Hands, I'm actually like dropping my ego, JT, and saying like, I don't think I need to start something. I just think I need to find and be passionate about the product that I end up putting my face on, to then be like, yo, I'm a co-founder of this thing, or I helped start this thing, whatever, however the story works really, because all of it is just marketing. And then running it, that playbook, to your point, having an operator.
So smart, bro.
Because like, dude, exactly what you just said of like mixing creative with operational. Like, I know for a fact that I would be a very weak link when it comes to operational shit. And I think as creatives, it's important to be like, even just creatives and creators, like it's important to have self-awareness of like, yo, what are your strengths? Like, if you've gotten this far and like your thing has been storytelling, why would you try to go put an operational hat? Like, it'd be ludicrous to think that I'm going to do that well without much experience in it.
And I think it's even more than just what, like, you might be good at it, but it's more of like, what do you actually enjoy?
100%.
Because I'm very similar to you in terms of like creative and like content and like being out there. And I actually also feel like I am very good at operations, but it's not something that I genuinely enjoy. And so it's the same thing of like energy and like how are you spending your time? Because I do think that when you are spending your time on the things you want to, shit works way better. So I think a lot of creators that have launched businesses are realizing, wait a minute, like I actually want to get back to creating. I don't even think, bro, I'm having this conversation like weekly with people that are like, I launched this business. Some of them are like, it's going really well. I hate it. Yeah. Some of them are like, it didn't go really well and I'm done. Some of them are like, it's going really well. I can't stand it. All I want to do is create. So I actually like that idea so much. And this is where I think like you're just a really smart dude, because a lot of people wouldn't actually say that to themselves and admit that and be like, oh, it doesn't need to even be like when you said that, it doesn't even, to me, it's not even an ego thing. It's like, that's a smart thing. That actually is an ego thing, that it's smart that you're saying that, because I think it's genuinely smart. It's like, it's even more strategic for you to find somebody that absolutely loves operating. And like a lot of creatives might not realize it, but there is people that genuinely get so fired up to be in spreadsheets, to be overseeing people, to be managing projects, to be following up, to be like, people love that. There's some people that absolutely love that. If that's not you, rather than you going and trying to fit into that box, I do think a great play is can you find that person that does love that, and can you help them with the areas that they're weak? Because a lot of those operators are like, dude, I'm the most savage at like structuring this, but I don't know how to get into the world. I don't know how to get people to care about it or see it. So that's the way that I think it will work. And I do think a lot of creators will do that. And I think there's a real appetite for brands right now. Of most brands don't know how to market themselves in an organic way, which is what creators know how to. This is why I'm so stoked about what we're doing. I think a lot of brands will get to the realization where they're like, wait a minute, we have a great product. We have a great team. We literally can't get this out without paying for it. The only way we're getting this in the world is through paid ads. And that's going to run dry, and that's going to get a lot harder at some point. So why don't we invest in somebody that knows how organically and build a community organically, bring them into the fold, allow them to embrace this and be part of this, and like rise this together. And I think that that's the only way you can do that is going to creators, because creators know how to build the community.
It's really interesting. And honestly, that actually, you speaking on that from the brand side, like even for creators that are smaller, that still is like under that bucket of like influencer marketing at some level.
Yes.
Right? Like whether you're a UGC creator and you're just like getting paid per video without ever posting on your own channels, or it's the Logan Paul KSI situation where you're like getting maybe equity in a company and you're literally slapping your face on it and saying like, I've been part of this. And now whichever route a brand actually goes, I think to your point, it's like the new age of running business, because like why spend all your marketing spend in paid when you can just get it from organic?
Yep.
And like that's like another whole conversation of like probably from more on your end of like what you've seen work for a lot of these smaller brands, that if you want to compete against these big players, like you have to operate leaner. You have to operate like you're not a major Fortune 500 company. Like you have to play in a different rule book.
Yep.
And I think that's just something that's
all of the brands that are winning right now have figured out organic. They have figured out organic. There is brands that are winning with paid right now because they have a war chest of dollars to be able to spend for it. The reason why it's working for them as well is because they're paying for creative. They're paying for content that is working in a paid capacity, which is all of the content that's working in a paid capacity. For those of you guys that don't understand paid ads, all of the content that's working in a paid capacity right now is content that would work organically. It's like shit people want to watch. Whereas a couple of years ago, it was like, you know, a very specific style of static ad or like photo, and it was completely different than what people actually generally want to watch. So now all of the paid shit is like, how do we figure out organic, because then our paid will work. So creators are even more important because they understand organic. No, most creators aren't doing paid for themselves.
Yeah.
So if you understand organic, you are a benefit to a company. Like if you are building your own audience right now, building your own community, and your content is hitting, I would reach out to every single brand that's in the category that you are in and just literally send a message. Yo, what's up? Can I be of help? Can I help with content? Can I make content for you? Do you want to partner and use the collab tool on Instagram and actually like be shown to both? Do you want me to just make content that you guys just post? But like organic, brands need organic.
What are your thoughts on what are your thoughts on creators that end up paying for paid ads or paying for followers or engagement? Like, I want to touch on that because I think I've actually had a couple people tell me like, yo, look at so-and-so's account. They have 1 million followers, but look at their engagement. How are 8,000 people watching that video and 5,000 people liking it? Like, I guess talk about like even the psychology around that, but also how obvious it is from like just as consumers, but also as brands, is like that is not a legit and real audience. And now there's so many tools online that you can actually look up and see someone's thing and someone's account and be like, yo, half their audience is like in like a small country in Asia that like is not converting for anything.
The way that I feel with any sort of paying for performance is you're not fooling the people that actually matter. The people that you might be fooling aren't the people that you actually want to care, and the people that you do actually want to care can tell, because it's really not that hard to go and look at somebody that has tons of followers, super low engagement, or something being like they have a very limited followers, but they're getting, you know, like 850 comments. You know, to me, it's just like I never understood the why. Who are you fooling? Yeah. Like, to me, it's just like, what's the reason? Brands, if you're trying to do it for brands to be more interested in you, what ends up happening is a brand becomes interested in you. Now they're looking at your content and they're like, okay, this is the expectance. They're going to get 800 comments. That's going to translate to, you know, just out of rough math, 50 people signing up for our service or buying our product or whatever. But what they don't know is all 800 of those people are in India and aren't real or are bots or something. So they're getting 0 sales, which ends up hurting your brand and hurts your community. To me, it's just a losing battle.
Yeah.
I would rather, what I would rather you spend time in is, if you're going to pay for something, pay for the tools to learn how to actually do it, for you to actually have something to run with long term. Like pay for like a course or a teacher or somebody or a consultant or somebody to help you so that it becomes real, rather than paying for something that's going to just inflate.
Yeah. For creators itself, talk about like positions, things that like you've maybe hired on when you first were like creating your stuff, and like you're like, yo, I'm at a point where like I've done everything. I'm editing the videos, I'm shooting them, I'm writing the copy, like. And when we chatted about this a little bit about like where are like rooms where like areas of improvement for a lot of creators where like they're getting the video done, they're shooting it, they're editing it, but then they're looking at time and they're like, yo, I don't really have balance. Like now I'm eating shit, I'm in the dirt, and like I'm doing all the things, but like what would be the first hire of someone that you're like, yo, you've now kind of solidified yourself and you need to kind of create some barriers of like, do the shit you like and let other people kind of replace these jobs?
I think it's so dependent on the creator, because there's some people that can outsource editing, which would be like the first thing that I'd be like, probably hand off your editing. But there's other people that can't, because the editor doesn't understand how to cut. And I think that's the job that is much harder than putting the visual over top or adding the text. It's really like taking a longer piece of content and actually cutting it and like choosing what area to select. And I think that's a hard job to find, especially if you're doing something, especially if it's your own thoughts and opinions that are going into the world. Finding somebody that can get that is something that's hard. So some people will have a really easy job outsourcing to an editor, and that's the thing that I think you should do. Other people, I'm like, dude, you're gonna have to keep editing. Like even for me, I'm like, I have a hard time outsourcing my editing, because a lot of the times it's like a 5-minute clip that they're cutting into a minute, and it just becomes challenging for them to pick the exact spots. So I'm like, it's a better usage of my time to do that. Editing is one. Filming, if you can have somebody that can help you with this, like if you can join a studio and pay for that, for somebody to actually have cameras set up, so you don't need to worry about that. That's another thing. Turning your content into other styles, like ask yourself, what is the style, like visual versus written versus audio versus photo? What is the style that I genuinely enjoy creating? And if I'm trying to go into a different platform, is there somebody that can take my one style and translate it into another? Written to visual, visual to audio, visual to written. That's something that I would think about. But to answer your question, I think it's really asking yourself, like, what do I enjoy? Yeah. What's the stuff I enjoy, and what's the other tasks that I'm doing that I feel like are draining my energy, and how can I get somebody to help me out with some of those?
Yeah. No, I agree. And it is kind of like, I think it is like a personal thing, 'cause for some, that might just be an admin person. Yeah. To like lay off some of the work of like the actual back and forth with brands. And I actually think that this is important for a lot of creators. And something my mentor always told me early on was like, you create a separation from even emails that are coming inbound. Like if you are now starting to like actually turn this into like a business where there's a lot of potential opportunities, like creating a fake email, a fake alias where it's like not your email. It could just be partnerships or your fake assistant, but it's actually just you still. Mm-hmm. Like that little barrier from a brand is, I think, really, really important because brands don't get full access just to your time. It's like, no, oh, you want to talk with JT? Then, oh, well, this is his rate sheet, and we might be able to hop on a call after we get to like a negotiated overall budget. And even doing stuff like that, I've found has been tremendous. And like I've actually hired an admin, but even before that, I just had like a fake email where I'm like, I'm still responding, but it's like,
This is Jessica.
This is Jessica.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. It's like I remember my mentor telling me that. I'm like, damn, that actually is smart, because that little barrier of entry is a nice kind of offset where it's like you don't have to be the bad guy. Mm-hmm. It's why people hire managers.
Yeah.
Talking about managers.
Okay.
Your thoughts on management and or having people represent you in that world?
My belief for myself has always been, I want to be the person that manages myself. I had agents for hockey. The way that I felt about my agent was kind of just like, for any of them that I had, I just kind of felt like it didn't feel like a relationship. It felt more like they represent me. They're bringing me opportunities. We don't really have like a close knit relationship. So it just didn't feel great for me. So when I got into social, I was like, I want to understand how to negotiate for myself. I want to understand how to get on a call and articulate for myself and actually like hold my own in the conversation. So I was like, I don't need any representation. Do I think that that's a good option for people? Absolutely. I think if you find somebody that you love, that you like, or if it's a friend that you like think has the chops to do it, and it's not something you enjoy, like you don't enjoy getting on calls with brands or like doing the follow-ups and things like that, then I think it's a good play. I do think that it depends on who and what the rate is. But for most creators that don't have access to companies, if you have an agent that is like a Rolodex of companies and they're like, hey, we can immediately do this and this and this, and you don't have access to that, that's awesome. That's a great opportunity. Mm-hmm. I always felt like, and probably in a little bit of my own kind of competitive way, I always felt like I want to be able to create the access myself. I don't want an agent to be the person that's giving me access. I have the access. So I was like, I don't need an agent. At this point in time, if I continue on and building my own personal brand bigger and bigger, I don't know if it's an agency that I would go to get managed by it, but I wouldn't be against somebody representing me in a different way to where I'm not the person doing it and I can lean even more into the things that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So I think it's so dependent on like who the person is that you're with.
Yeah. It's I mean, JT, as you can imagine, like I've gotten poached by a lot of people. And I still, for whatever, it's not even for whatever reason. Like I just know I think I have a similar ambition of like wanting to understand the business side, and the cut that I'm saving, quote unquote, of like the management fee just goes back to my team. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, that 20%, 15%, 25%, I'm now just in my mind reinvesting it back into the people that are editing, that are shooting for me, that are doing admin, that are doing copy for me, versus just having it be an agency fee. So like even for me, like that's where my mind goes.
So we live in a world now where access has changed. Before, to go and be able to get in contact with, let's just say Sony, like for you to get access to Sony, you had to go through so many different loopholes, like somebody that represents the brand, the agency that represents Sony, and then you had to talk to so-and-so, and then you had to finally like get to the person. Whereas now, if you have an audience, you can send a DM to Sony. They probably have a social media manager that's checking that. If you're legit, there's a really good chance that they'll pass you to that person. So you just don't need the same amount of like, there's no gatekeepers. Yeah. You don't need like the same amount of like somebody to come and like handhold you into that room. So I am also of the belief of like, I would rather just spend that money on, if I do need help with something, the money I'll spend is on a friend or a virtual assistant or a executive assistant to like be sending these messages for me from my own personal, but I don't need to pay an agent to like go and do all of that legwork. Here's the other end of it though. When you get to a place where you are very legitimate as a creator, I do think that there is an option that people should consider of having some sort of team join you to build out additional businesses, like you just talked about, being like being a co-founder of a business. Mm-hmm. I do think that there's a play for the same way that Reed has done it with all of these different creators. Who did you mention for Joyride?
Ryan Trahan.
Ryan Trahan. Exactly what he did with Ryan Trahan of being like, okay, we represent him for content, but what we're really trying to do is build businesses. Let's go look at CPG brands. And they found Joyride. That is something that I think is a good play, but that comes at such a different stage.
Correct.
Than being a beginner. And I think when you're just starting out, you can have a homie send messages. Yeah. And you can find the access yourself.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan's at like a different stage. Like even like, I don't think I'm at that stage where it's like, that's like a legitimate conversation yet.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the goal is like, that is like the plan in that sense. But, no, I think that is like, when I've talked to certain agencies, that's always been their value prop, because it's not like if an agency is going to come to me like, oh Matt, like we get a 20% cut and we're going to bring you deals. Most times I'm like, if that's all you can offer, then show me your work and show me how many deals you can send me without me signing a contract, and I'll still give you the cut. And every single time, JT, they never send me a deal. Mm-hmm. Because like they understand that at the end of the day, they want me on their roster as well. Now, if someone's like, yo, we want to like actually like, to your point, build businesses and work on other ways where if you stopped wanting to make content, like that you could also continue like moving forward in a different avenue. I think that's also a different conversation. So I do agree with that.
The best managers or agents, which I feel like are very similar in social, what I've seen them do is they start by saying, I'm going to go bring you brand deals, and I don't even want commission on them. What I want is to actually build businesses with you. So they don't even take a cut at the beginning just to prove it out and like show, or like it might not be forever, but for the first 6 months, I'm going to bring you brand deals. I don't want anything.
Yeah.
I just want to show you that I want to actually help you build this, help you build the team around you, help you get better with your content, help you understand your own brand. I think when agents feel like it's like where it's transactional and they're like, they just want you to do that deal and they're out, that's not the right fit.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know how earlier you're talking about kind of like your intuition and like your ability to see like creators, but also like seeing like the human element of like what they bring to the table. Is there anyone recent that you're like, yo, they're smaller right now, or like they're like other exciting creators that are like maybe that have caught your eye? This would be a fun cut up if you call this out.
Other creators that have caught my eye,
and maybe some of them are already like sizable and like that, like you feel like, yo,
can I look really quick?
Yeah,
I'll have one. Give me 1 second. Let's see. I'm not gonna have service.
You might need to hop on that Wi-Fi.
I messaged somebody a couple days ago. Let's see. This is what I do, because I just like genuinely like find people that I'm like, yo, I like really think what you're doing is cool. You know who I messaged the other day? Oh, this is the dude I was messaging. Here we go. This is the one I was talking about. Daniel Dolan. Have you seen him on YouTube?
Daniel Dolan, no.
Okay, so this is a dude that is now going heavily onto YouTube, and he's doing cinematic documentation of him building a business in China. I think he's a UK or Danish born, but lived in China for parts of his life and now moved back and is running a business in China, speaks Chinese and also speaks English, and is filming his vlog showing people what it's like living in China running this business. I saw his stuff. I immediately was like, yo, I think that this is really interesting. Way too cinematic, way more cinematic than I can ever make mine, but very unique and very cool and very interesting style, like his own kind of wave. And when I went to message him, and realized that him and I had already had a message. And I was like, shit, we were already messaging on Instagram 2 years ago. We messaged. So then I just messaged him again. I was like, dude, I just went to message you and saw that we had chatted very briefly, like super briefly.
Yeah.
And just said, love what you're doing on YouTube, and I'm pumped for you. And I said, I started my journey. It's way less production than you. I love the way that yours looks, but I'm really excited for this as well. And just like giving love. I think he's a dude that I like. I think he's got some chops. Okay. Daniel Dolan.
I love that. JT, where is that level of like, where does that love come from for you? Like your ability to just like take time out of your busy day to do that. Cause like, yo, most people, like, even for me at times, I'm not like, I go through some DMs, but like, there's so many messages that I probably could respond to, and or people that I'm like, I could do that to. Like I really respect that your ability to do that. Like where does that come from for you?
Dude, I honestly, I think that that's the whole thing for me. Like, I think that that's why I love social so much. I got into social media because that was the way that I connected with people when I wasn't living with my family. So social for me has always come from a place of like genuine connection with other people, that all of the like virality, hacking, understanding the algorithms, strategy, all of that to me is such a like spin-off of what I actually really enjoy. I really just like, I enjoy people. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy connecting with people. I enjoy giving love to people. I have gone through tons of things in my life where like somebody reaching out and saying, yo, love what you're doing, has helped me. So I know the feeling like of like somebody giving love to you, that like I want to do that for other people. I want other people to feel good about it. And I think the backside of that is I have been blessed with some sort of skill that I was born with, being able to understand social media as like a business. So I like being able to like give people love and then be like, by the way, like I really do think what you're doing has some chops or has some potential. So it feels good for me to be able to do that.
Yeah, I love that. Yo, you had a podcast early on called Curiosity.
Curious with JT Barnett, yeah.
How do you scratch that muscle? Like, what do you do? Like, is it activity? Questions.
How do I scratch curiosity?
Yeah, like how do you seek that? Questions?
Usually it's with people, it's questions, asking questions, like just genuinely like curiosity to me is like intrigue. It's like fascination. It's like just finding something, just being like, it's just following my interests, following what, like, there's like a feeling. I'm very in feelings. Like, this is what I said about Gary too. Like, I'm very, I grew up with four sisters, my mom, and raised by my nanny, who was a woman. So all around a lot of girls. And I feel like I've just always been into feeling my emotions in my body. And that has led me to all of the things that I do. It's way less up here. It's way more physical. So I think the curiosity thing for me is like, if I gravitate toward things, like I just like kind of go like, okay, that seems interesting. So let me like learn a little bit more about it. So I feel like when I find that intrigue, I ask questions, and I just like kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit and follow what feels interesting.
Fair. So maybe it's like Padel.
Bro, I'm all in on Padel. Talk about curiosity. Dude, there's a funny thing. I don't know what the reasoning is, but the more that I come to understanding myself and like loving myself, accepting myself, all of that, the more I've come to the realization that I am so blessed to be the son of my dad and my mom, because I got all of this creativity from my dad and all of this wellness from my mom, creativity and business from my dad, and all of this like wellness from my mom. And those are the two kind of like makeups of who I am. And so that's the kind of shit that's literally all my business is like, it's business, but it's wellness wrapped in business.
Fair.
All of my content, if anybody goes and listens back to it, like most of the things are very similar to what a therapist would be saying to you. It's from my therapy sessions that I'm like, oh, this actually really relates to content, because content for me has been such a journey of understanding myself and putting myself out there and loving myself for my own ideas and thoughts and beliefs, and being like, I'm going to share this with the world. Hopefully people resonate with it. And lo and behold, people have, and it's been amazing. So I think I'm really lucky that I was born with the shit that my dad gave me and my mom gave me of this like intersection of wellness and creative business. So I just try and follow that.
I love that. Yo, last question I have, and I love this question because I think it's something that it could have nothing to do with this conversation, but what's something that you're proud about that not many people know about yourself?
Because I'm an open book, I feel like a lot of people probably know most, but I would say that not many people know, dude, probably just the amount of self-work that I've done. Like, I think if you talked to a therapist, if you talked to any of my therapists or coaches or like people that have been in that realm of like a coach for me and spoke with them, I think most of them would say amongst the other people that they work with that I have put by far and away the most amount of time into like really actually wanting to learn and understand myself. Because when I was playing hockey, I wasn't happy. I like genuinely was like, I love hockey. I love where I'm at in it, like in this world, but like there's more for me. And I don't know what it is, but it wasn't more for me externally. There was more for me internally. There was more like I hadn't scratched my own itch of who I was and like what I needed to know and what I wanted to do with myself. So it took me starting to go to therapy to actually like really understand myself on a deeper level. And when that happened and I went to therapy, I've talked about this a lot. When I started going to therapy and they were like, it's getting more into your feelings, it's understanding your past and like really diving into it. When that happened for me, bro, the universe unlocked. Like it literally was like, it's a fucking wrap. If you understand yourself, shit is easy. Yeah. If you actually feel good with yourself, shit becomes easy. Business becomes easy. All of it becomes easy. So I was like, I'm going to really dedicate myself. And I think in the last like I've gone to therapy for 8 years now. In the last 8 years, like really actually like sticking to that. A lot of people start therapy, do a year of it, get an answer, leave and go right back to those habits. For me, I'm like, no, I actually want to hold myself accountable and like I want to live the way that I want to live. So I'm sticking to this. So I would say the thing that I'm really proud of is like the fucking relationship I have with myself.
Dude, I love that. That's a mic drop right there. Bro, this is really fun. I mean, I'm sure we could chat for hours, but like honestly, this was like, even for me, like dude, probably like the longest time you and I have gotten to just like chop it.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is like super fun, just like to get like picking your brain and like seeing how you think about content, but also the social space that we're in, and also just like your internal stuff. So it's been super fun, bro, and I really appreciate you being on.
Thank you, brother.
And I hope I hope that your parents actually officially move so we can see each other more often.
I agree. We're gonna see.
I love it, bro. Thanks for being a guest.